Hello, Sylvie. Can you hear
Hi
us?
there. I can't hear you. I can't see you, but
You
I'm
can't. See, I told you that was going to happen.
imagining.
Wait a minute.
As
Let me.
long as I can hear you, we're
Yeah.
good. I'm imagining this
Yeah.
beautiful audience,
Yeah. I'm
hopefully
gonna.
inspired by the film.
Yes, I think so. There was lots of clapping. I don't know if you heard that. You can clap again. There you go.
Oh,
There you go.
great. Thank you so much.
And
I'm so glad.
what was your inspiration for making this film? Have you done other environmental nature films, or was this striking out on a new path for you? Or are you a lifelong environmentalist? What was the sort of the impetus to
I,
start?
I, I can definitely say I'm a lifelong nature lover. So I was a really lucky kid. This really started at a very young age, the desire to share an appreciation for nature. I grew up in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and I don't know if some of you might know, but it's a city that's basically in the midst of the Atlantic forest, which is one of the most biodiverse forests on the planet. And Rio is positioned so that it's a mix. It's basically the way I like to put it in a poetic way. It's when the ocean embraces the forest. So it's really a gorgeous location. And my parents were nature lovers, and we would explore beaches and mountains and waterfalls and rivers when I was a kid, and used to see all kinds of critters, and always felt that I wanted to share that. Either I would share it with my brother or with my buddies, or it was just nature was a playground, and it was also a sense of wonder. I mean, there was just so much inspiration for me in terms of like exploring nature was the ultimate place to be. And growing up, of course, I felt like my heart was torn in pieces as time went by. Until this day, we see the environmental destruction in the world. And, about maybe 20 years ago, when I first started my career as a filmmaker, I, I mean, it's a very long story. I'm going to try to shorten it. But basically, I did some work for the Travel Channel, and um, shooting as a cinematographer, shooting beautiful places, but I felt that there wasn't really a film that was about how deeply connected we are with the natural world. And I felt that there was really a need to evoke in people a sense of relating to nature, like we are an extension of it, we are a part of it. And I felt that there was a void between so many really important and great environmental films and between that and all the films that were about nature as something out there, something outside of us, I felt that there was really a need to evoke in people the sense that we are a part of nature, we are an extension of nature, and ultimately we protect what we love. And so unless people were to have an exposure or a connection or experience a sense of being intimate with the natural world in whatever that means. For some people, it might be exploring a beach. For some people, it might be gardening. Other people, it might be cooking delicious natural foods. But that sense of connection, I think that we all need that to really realize that we have to protect what sustains us.
I had a question. There was one of the commenters that was listed as a biomimicry inventor.
Okay.
And I was very curious to learn more about what kind of biomimicry inventions were made. If you could share that, or if you know anything
Sure.
about what that person does.
Sure. Feel free to also, after the film, after this event, feel free to Google him. His name is Jay Harman, Jay Harman, Harman. And so Jay, it's a lifelong passion for him has been connection with water. And one of the things that he got to realize and to learn is that there's like a way in which water moves that is incredibly efficient. And whether you have like uh, water spouts in the ocean or hurricanes, or like the way that water goes down even a hole or a drain, there's a certain movement that water makes in terms of that is just kind of natural movement of water that doesn't really requires much energy at all. And he got to realize that if he were to mimic the way water actually moves, we could create certain systems. And he ended up creating turbines that are being used, whether they are for fans and to cool off certain ambience, or actually in a larger scale, some of these turbines have been used for as city systems of distributing water. And so basically, those are turbines that are mimicked after those movements of water. And so I know that that's one of his invention is the turbine. And he might have some other ones, and I encourage you to take a look at his website. He actually has an organization that is dedicated to applying biomimicry and inventing. Really, as an inventor, he's coming up with solutions that are replicated after nature. But certainly, biomimicry 3.8 really goes broader than the work of Jay's work and his organization. So Biomimicry 3.8 and Biomimicry Institute were co-founded by Dana Baumeister, who was on the film. She's one of the scientists in the film. And Dana and Janine Banyas is her co-founder. And they both founded these organizations with the mission to actually educate, whether they're inventors or scientists, architects, engineers, medical doctors. They're actually helping people in all of the fields and across industries on how to invent products and processes that actually replicate the works of nature. And the Biomimicry Institute, which is the nonprofit arm of biomimicry, is biomimicry.org. So there's a world of information on these websites that is just fascinating in terms of how we, as a species, we're learning to actually look at nature and all of its technologies that have been around. When you think of it, the planet has been around for 4.5 billion years, and life has been around for 3.8 billion years. It's got amazing inventions that we haven't even scratched the surface. And probably any invention or any technologies that we would like to invent has already been invented by nature. And so really this technological advance or this technological progress is incredibly important if we want to embark in this new, what I call the new industrial revolution, being the biological revolution.
Just want to say what a beautiful film, and what a great film to have for a conclusion here for our environmental film fest here. And
Thank you.
It made me realize that this little island, this little speck in the Atlantic Ocean, that I was born here and I still live here, how fortunate I am. And sometimes a day will go by and I don't realize how fortunate I am. And your film kind of made me feel that way, that maybe tomorrow when even though it's going to rain and pour, that when I see the rain come out of the sky and hit the ground and hit the trees, how lucky I am to live here. And the other thing, I want a piece of watermelon after seeing your film.
There's something amazing about the rain. I happen to live in California, and as you probably know, we've been experiencing a very serious drought for the past 3 to 4 years. And whenever we see rain, we feel like it's the most beautiful thing that could actually fall from the sky. So I encourage you to enjoy that, and I really appreciate you letting me know about how the film encouraged you to connect more deeply with Martha's Vineyard nature.
At what point did you think Liam Neeson? At what point did Liam Neeson enter your mind as a potential narrator?
So it was towards the end. I had done a first version of the film with a narration, but I really felt that it was important that we have a really powerful, beautiful, talented voice. And, you know, I had a list of maybe 12 celebrities at the time, and I think in my quiet times, I kept thinking of his voice as being the voice of Sapiens. And that kept happening over and over and over again. And at some point, I thought to myself, you know what? I'm not even gonna try to connect with other celebrities. I'm just gonna really. I did not have a connection with him or anybody in his entourage. I just felt like, you know, if I keep thinking his voice is the voice of Sapiens, maybe there's something to it. And you know, one thing led to the other. I just got in touch with his voice agent, and his voice agent told me that, you know, after a few communications back and forth, that Liam would like to see the film, and I sent him the rough cut. And I got an answer within 2 weeks. So it was really delightful to, because I really felt like his voice and his essence on the film would be amazing. And so I'm very grateful that he did say yes to the film. And he's an extraordinary human being to work with, and or I'm sure, I mean, he has a whole collection of them, but in any case, we did get an award for him for a voiceover narration. And again, I'm incredibly grateful that he came on board.
Do you have any other projects going on right now, Sylvie? Your work is so magnificent.
Thank you. Well, the other project is getting Love Thy Nature out in the world. And so this is the beginning phase of it. We, at this point, we're having the film be screened as theatrical, but also community screenings. So I'm wanting to encourage anyone who would like to bring the film to their community, or to, you know, I mean, we've partnered up with an organization called TUG, and TUGG.com. And basically what they help us to do is to actually help the film be screened anywhere. So our goal is really to create a nature connecting movement. And I feel that the film is a tool to actually reach that goal. And so that is really the big project that we have ahead of us, is to make this message go wider and deeper into, you know, multiple communities here in the United States and across the world.
Hi there. I really loved this film. And what impressed me, among other things, were the wonderful quotations you had chosen that accompanied the visuals. I did have a question for you that's related to the fact that we're bombarded with sunscreens. We're told about cancer, etc. And you made a point of stressing how very important it is for children to have the sun on their bodies. I wondered what caused you to say that, in view of the fact that we're being frightened into getting melanoma if we don't cover ourselves.
Intuitively, to me, I feel like, you know, I mean, our species has been around for 200,000 years in this body and in this shape. From experience, maybe it was growing up in a beach city, that spending time in the sun just made me happier and more joyful. And talking with a doctor, Dr. Philip Barr, who is on the film, about possible ideas of integration of connecting with nature with health. And, you know, he mentioned to me that he was working also on something that had to do with the effects, the positive effects of the sun. And it got us talking about how we are really bombarded by messages that are about shying away from the sun and being afraid from the sun. And both intuitively, I mean, I knew intuitively that that couldn't be right, that if nature created us diurnal animals versus nocturnal animals, you know, there's something that doesn't seem completely right. And then when Philip Barr talked to me about scientific studies that are coming out saying that we actually do need the sun, and that there is a perfect balance, and we're trying to discover what that perfect balance might be. I mean, when you start looking at indigenous cultures, many of them actually use forms of, you know, body covers. I mean, they use plants and they use different materials in nature to actually cover their bodies. And part of that can be aesthetics, but part of that is also protecting the skin from excessive sun. And so, it's almost like we're doing the same thing by using sunscreen, but maybe we're going a bit too far. And I think that what I wanted to do with the film is encourage more dialogue about this. More studies need to be done. What are we going to know in 20, 30, 50 years from now that we might not know today? And it's very possible, and it would only make logical sense that, again, if nature created us diurnal, is that because we do need some sun. The question is how much, and what is the balance that we need to find. And so that's really what encouraged me to bring that aspect on the film as well. Thanks for this question. Yeah, it's a good question. So Doreen had mentioned something. I might ask the audience a question,
Yes,
if I may.
please.
Doreen mentioned that she really appreciated all the quotes in the film. I was wondering, and of course you don't have to say the quotes verbatim, because even I have a hard time after watching the film 837 times, but you don't have to say the quote verbatim, but just what quote, or the sense of what the quote was about, what quote might have resonated the most with you. And anybody can, be the brave soul to raise their hand and say, I have an answer. And there's no wrong answer. I mean, there are 12 quotes on the film. Would love to know what quotes are resonating with you all.
Well, it resonates because I went to a Waldorf school in New Hampshire, so Rudolf Steiner spoke to me. And I read a Rachel Carson book when I was 13 that just, oh my God, what are we doing? So
Right.
here I am at 60 or almost 60 and going, oh boy,
Yeah,
we're still there. So those resonated with me.
great. Yeah, Rachel Carson. I don't know if I can say that quote verbatim, but it's something to do that the more we focus our attention on the wonders and the beauty of the universe, the less taste we shall have for destruction.
Gandhi.
I found John Muir's quotes
Gandhi.
I like
very
Gandhi.
enlightening. I'm a hiker, an outdoors person, and I really enjoyed seeing his quotes on your film.
And somebody also said in the background, Gandhi, be the change you wish to see in the world.
You mentioned also all the beautiful locations. So can you tell us a little bit about the extent of time it took to photograph cinematography, all these beautiful locations? And were you personally at all these locations?
Yeah, I was at all the locations. Except maybe there are a few shots in the film that were stock footage. I mean, so NASA images. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to be on the satellite, but and also a forest in fire. So there are a few shots that like that were nearly impossible to get. But all the other ones that are, especially the nature shots. Yeah, I was present, and it really, I mean, I started this journey of the film 10 years ago, right? Actually, the month of May was completed 10 years from the very start of the film, and we started filming nature in 2007. And so, not to say that it was uninterrupted, of course it was interrupted, but basically, we had 4 different countries. So we filmed in Brazil, which is, like I was saying before, that's where I'm from. And in Namibia, which is northwest of South Africa. And the British Virgin Islands for underwater cinematography. And in the United States, we went to a variety of locations, from Florida to Alaska, and from California to New York City, and Hawaii, and some other beautiful locations as well. And my forte is to shoot nature. It's, as a cinematographer, that's really what I love to do. And so, of course, I wouldn't miss the party of being in a place to film. But as far as how much time it takes a long time, in the sense that it's like, you never know what you're going to get, right? It's like, you guys are predicting rain tomorrow. Or at least the weather folks are predicting rain. But sometimes we would plan a certain shoot, and we would want to get a certain animal or film a certain location expecting it to look a certain way. And it wouldn't happen that way. And so, of course, my way of seeing things is that you film whatever is presented to you, and you never know how things are going to evolve. And so, the ratio, people have asked me that before. I don't know exactly what is the ratio between filming and editing, like how much do we film in comparison to how much was edited down. But I would say it's usually somewhere between 30 to 50 to 1, meaning, we might have had 30 to 50 hours of footage for us to create a film that was an hour and 10 minutes. So it's something to that effect. You never know what the story is going to be until, with documentaries anyway, until you're actually in the editing room and starting to build it. So you have a sense of it, but not exactly.
This is a question that is similar to one that you would ask of a songwriter. What comes first, the music or the words? In your case, did you start with the quotation and then pick the setting, the animals, the dynamics of what you filmed, or was it the other way around?
I think it was a little bit of both. It's kind of like a magic potion. You just you put a little spice here, and then you taste it, and then you put a little spice there, and then, it's like, it was really simultaneous. I like poetry, and I've been collecting different poems, and especially the ones that have to do with nature. And I just, would sort of like find a quote, and it's like, oh my goodness, I need to use this quote on the film somewhere. And other times it was like I would have a segment, like the health segment. I was really stuck with that one because I didn't really know a quote that I felt was a good fit. And so my assistant and I just did a ton of research to find something that was really fitting. And then I found that quote from Paracelsus that, healing does not come from the doctor. It really comes from nature, and the doctor needs to start with nature and keep an open mind. And it's not the doctor that's really curing us or healing us. It's really our bodies that are doing the work. And what they're doing is basically telling us what are the things that will support our bodies in making that happen, in restoring itself. So that's one example in which I was at the end of the film and like, goodness, I need a quote. But all the other ones were very much, it was simultaneous, basically.
I actually have a quote for you.
Oh, great.
Yes.
I love that.
You're familiar with
Annie.
Yeah, okay. Well, I don't know if I'm going to get it verbatim, but
okay.
You're familiar with Annie Dillard? The
No.
author, Annie Dillard. Do you know?
Annie Dillard. No,
Dillard. Okay,
Dillard.
I read this recently. She said, at a certain point, we say to the sea, to the ocean, to the mountains, to the woods, I am ready now.
I am ready now.
Ready to embrace, I would imagine.
That's exactly what I was going to say. That's how I'm interpreting it, right? It's as a civilization, we have not been ready for a few hundred years anyway. And I think that because our separation from nature has become so drastic, it's almost like, if we were to look at this as a dysfunction, as an addiction, it's almost like we're hitting rock bottom. And it's time for us to really remember and realize that nature is what we are. And so ultimately, I think it's beautiful. I'm ready now. And I hope that we will be ready individually in terms of our families. One of the things that I always say to folks like you guys is to say, schedule time in your calendar, just like we would schedule a visit to a mechanic if we have a car, or we schedule time or an important appointment or an important meeting or time with a doctor. We need to schedule time in our calendars to actually take ourselves and our loved ones to places that are nature, that are basically as untouched by man as possible. And we don't do that, and I think it's really important for us to do that for our health, our physical health and our emotional health, our neurological health, and also so that we actually have an opportunity to give ourselves that sense of meaning and wonder and the experience of awe which we rarely have nowadays. And so, incredibly important. And I hope that more and more and more people are going to be ready.
Excellent. Excellent. So, are we ready to finish? I think we are, Sylvie. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much for
Sylvie.
joining us here on a late Sunday evening.
Beautiful, beautiful film.
Yes, and
I
we
so
greatly appreciate it. And we hope that someday we'll have a chance to visit us in Martha's Vineyard.
I hope so too. I would
Yes.
love to.
Yeah,
It will
fantastic.
fill you with awe.
I'm sure it
Fantastic.
will.
Well, Thank you.
Keep up the work. We need good female filmmakers to be
Thank
out there.
you. Thank you very much.
you
I
are.
will. Yes, thank you. Have a beautiful time, you all. Thank you so much for coming.